the betrayal that ended a civilization, the fall of Granada, and the death of Al-Andalus in 1492. While the world remembers Columbus setting sail for a new world, another world was ending quietly, painfully, and permanently. The banners of Castile rose above the red towers of the Alhambra. The last Muslim king of Spain, Abu Abdullah, better known as Boabdil, stood weeping as he handed over the keys to the Christian monarchs, Ferdinand and Isabella. That single moment silent ceremonial marked the end of nearly 800 years of Muslim presence in Spain. But what history often forgets is that it was not Christian swords alone that brought down it was betrayal, division, pride. A civilization collapsed, not from a single blow, but from 1,000 wounds, many inflicted by its own hands. The story of Al-Andalus is one of the greatest paradoxes in history. It was a golden age of science, poetry, and tolerance, yet it died in conflict, silence, and exile. Let us go back to the beginning. Within a few years, much of the Iberian Peninsula came under Muslim rule. They called it Al-Andalus. Its libraries held hundreds of thousands of men. Its physicians performed surgeries while others prayed for miracles. Christians, Jews, and Muslims lived together not in perfect peace, but in remarkable coexistence compared to the brutal religious wars that defined the rest of medieval Europe. In 711, Muslim forces crossed the Strait of Gibraltar from North Africa and defeated the Visigothic king at the Battle of Guadalete. Trust dissolved. Brotherhood turned to suspicion, and what they built was extraordinary. In the great city of lamps lit the streets while the rest of Europe lay in darkness. The Nasrid kingdom of Granada, the last Muslim state, stood for over 200 years, thanks to diplomacy, tribute, and the brilliance of its architecture. Like the Alhambra, at its height, Al-Andalus produced some of the most brilliant minds in human history. Ibn Rushd, the philosopher who reintroduced Aristotle to Europe. Ibn Hazm, whose treatise on love remains deeply human. Al-Zarawi, the father of modern surgery. But every golden age carries the seed of its own destruction. As generations passed, unity fractured. The once mighty Umayyad Caliphate and splintered into rival Taifas independent Muslim kingdoms, often more eager to fight each other than to defend against common threats. His uncle, his generals, and even the people grew divided. Rulers allied with Christian kings to crush Muslim rivals. And while the Muslims of Al-Andalus argued over titles and territories, the Christian kingdoms of the north, Castile, Aragon, Leon grew stronger, united by faith and a singular goal. Muslims could keep their religion, their lands, their language. The reconquest of Spain. Over centuries, cities fell. Toledo, Valencia, Seville, those who resisted were expelled or killed. And yet, even in decline, Al-Andalus shone, but it was also a house built on compromise. And compromise, when built on fear, cannot last. Boabdil, the last Sultan of Granada, is remembered as a tragic figure. But his fall was not just his own. His own family betrayed him. Ferdinand and Isabella, seizing the moment, laid siege to Granada, and Boabdil surrendered. The conditions were generous, at least on paper, but paper burns easily. Within years, promises were broken. Mosques were turned into churches. Arabic was banned. Children were forced into conversion. By the early 1600s, even the converted Muslims, known as Moriscos, were exiled. Over 300,000 people were uprooted, their culture erased. Al-Andalus was not just defeated, it was buried. What died with it was more than just a kingdom. It was a unique experiment in coexistence, in thought, in human potential. And what led to its death was not just Christian conquest. It was a failure of unity. The Muslims of Al-Andalus forgot one essential truth: no civilization survives without collective purpose. They valued art, but forgot sacrifice. They built palaces, but neglected their alliances. They dreamed in poetry, but slept through warning. It is easy to blame to mock him for weeping as he fled Granada, but Boabdil did not destroy Al-Andalus. He merely witnessed its funeral. Its real death came long before, in the betrayal of unity, the arrogance of comfort, and the silence of the wise. And now, centuries later, we must ask, what have we learned? We often celebrate the rise of civilizations, but we rarely reflect on why they fall. Is it enough to have knowledge if we lack courage? Is it enough to be right if we cannot remain united? Is it enough to build if we cannot protect? The lessons of Al-Andalus echo beyond Spain, beyond Islam, beyond history, because this is a human story, a story of beauty lost, of pride unchecked, of betrayal from within. Imagine if the scholars had been heard. Imagine if Al-Andalus had survived. Would science have advanced faster? Would coexistence have become the norm? Would we live in a more tolerant world today? Or did we bury a part of ourselves the day Granada fell? What if we've been taught only half the truth?